Boys, I've got 2540 south, 17228 east. Carry on. Carry on, course, speed and wind, over.
Steady eastwards, basically.
Roger. Copied. Could you give me your wind speed? The wind speed. I have easterly. What is the wind speed, David? What did you say?
Don't get it.
I think I got 15. Is that correct? Oh, it has gone down quite a bit. All right, so much more pleasant, and you will be able to get a little bit of rest now. So making reasonable progress, and I hope all is well on board. Over. Okay, yeah, we have the reports from Sue that has come through, so we will check at this time again tomorrow. You have quite a good signal, actually. I'm surprised you're not getting me. Maybe something is on the boat. All right, we have you, and you're certainly doing a good speed. So thanks for that, David. Have a good sail today. You can't get much better than a good easterly wind. Over. All right, and if you are awake at the Tony's net time in a couple of hours, then we'll talk to you again then. Good morning, everybody. This is Gulf Harbour Radio, ZMH 286, Patricia and David, and we have an absolutely glorious day here today. Yesterday, I'll tell you what, it started cold in the morning. It got to 24. It was still 24 at 6:30 at night time, and in fact it was 27 inside the house because there was no wind and hard to get any fresh air inside. Absolutely glorious weather. It is quite safe to come home for those Kiwis that were beginning to wonder whether we were going to have October weather for another month, but absolutely glorious weather. It is calm, flat calm at the moment. In fact, there is a bit of fog around, 14 degrees C. It's actually quite humid, 87% relative humidity. The bar is 1017.6. It's steady and, of course, clear skies. So just a beautiful, beautiful morning. There are a couple of reports of absolutely beautiful sailing. Malachite is about 28, or not far behind is Intrinsic at 173. And Malachite has 12 to 15 knots from the east, 1017, 2% cloud, having a wonderful sail, good speed, and Intrinsic is as well, slightly south of east-southeast, 12, half a metre seas, just beautiful. Shandon just talked to, he's romping along at 7 knots as well with an easterly 10, up further at 2540. So just really, really nice weather for sailing in that particular part of the world. And so it will be interesting to see anybody else that comes in at the moment. Just try and get some reports from the Yit and following sea sites. The Yit takes an awful long time to load on my computer. But we do have a request, and hopefully you've got your ears on this one. We have a couple of questions from Noonsite. Now, Noonsite does an awful lot of work and gets information for cruises, so I'm hoping that somebody out there will be able to respond on a couple of these questions to help them. They ask, and this is from Sue, the editor, and this relates to Samoa. They have had information that you now need a cruising permit for Samoa, and that it is only for 5 days. If anybody has been in Samoa recently, like this season and not all that long ago, and has any information either one way or the other, it's just as important to have a negative as it is to confirm something. Please get back to me so we can pass this on. So the question is, do you need a cruising permit in Samoa? And if so, is it only for 5 days? And if it's not that situation, please let me know as well.
Is that American Samoa or Samoa Samoa?
No, this is Samoa. American Samoa is American Samoa. Okay, French Polynesia is the second question. And there is information that boats are being moved on from some anchorages and in fact stopped from going to some anchorages. I find this really hard to believe for French Polynesia, but anyway, again, if you have been there this season, and I know we will have boats that have come west from there, if you have been in French Polynesia this season and you have any information on this particular comment, then please get back to me. Two questions there from Noonsite, and we do like to support Noonsite as much as we can because they do such an awful lot. Actually, they made David and I get married one year. Now, you will find this really funny, but we looked up Noonsite, and we really, really love French Polynesia. So we were, I think, in, I don't know where we were at the time, Panama probably. Anyway, wherever we were, we looked up how we could possibly do more than 3 months in French Polynesia. And we found out that if one of you had a EU passport, in those days including a British passport, which I happen to have, if one of you had a British or EU passport and you were married, then you could stay as long as you like in French Polynesia. That's right, we happened to be in Cartagena, Colombia at the time. How could I forget? Because we did go and get married. It cost us a fortune, actually, because you had to theoretically have made application for 3 months ahead and so on and so forth. But anything can happen in Colombia if you pay the right amount of US dollars. So after a long story, which I won't bore you with, we did in fact get married. And then we got to Panama and found that, yes, if David and I were going into, for example, France, that was the case. We could both go in under my passport, but not in French Polynesia, who operated by a different set of laws. Well, David, of course, wanted his money back after all of that, but we didn't accommodate him on that. In fact, we had a really good time getting married in Cartagena, Colombia. But there you are. They do operate on their own rules, a little bit different from those in France. Okay, good morning to those that are on streaming, getting fewer and fewer as people are moving south. Shimata are still in Noumea. No wind. In fact, Noumea looks probably the best of the South Pacific looking across, except there's a big gap in the middle. The boats, I can see why the boats have got no wind coming down. It looks absolutely gorgeous. But anyway, good morning to those in New Caledonia, Y2K and Demesatroy and Shimata, clear skies 1015. And Lupin have got a report from just up the bay here, which will be of interest to Taranui will be in Auckland now. They would have arrived early this morning. Lupin are in Wangamumu, which is not too far from Whangarei. They're heading down. And good morning to you guys. You'll have beautiful weather as well. And good morning to the Valets in Port Denarau. Light winds there, 1012. Sky 80%, Alto Q, and about 1 to 3 knots of southeast wind. So that's it for all you folk. Nothing on yet by way of weather reports. So we'll just try following see if there's anything of interest there. And other than that, I shall certainly thank Havili for some of the reports he's sending us. And David's checking between GFS and ECMWF with the reports that Havili sent in for Tango, North Star, Lady Star, Sailmore and Bellina. And I think he said early this morning actually, that GFS might be putting them at the post. But anyway, we'll wait a little bit on that. Wilderness, this was from yesterday. So yeah, nothing new has come through except for people over in the United States. So is there anybody with anything for us? Please call now. No, nothing heard. I'll get on to a bit of news. I have put on to our website, which is ghradio.co.nz, an article on drogues. Panache, a catamaran, sent in some pictures of their drogue setup, and I have put it under Flotsam. It's quite interesting seeing drogue for a catamaran. Actually, anything with a catamaran is interesting to us because we're very monohull type people. But I have put the information that he sent with his pictures, which were really good, onto the website, and it's just called Drogues, and it's under the Flotsam section. So have a look at that. It's always good to get things set up before you head off on passage. We did. We had it really easy to just flop overboard at the back of the boat, and there you go. Aramco, for those of you that have got more money than sense, this is the world's most profitable company, Saudi Arabia Oil Company. It's going to have the world's biggest initial IPO. It is going public. I guess you'd have to have money to burn to go for a Saudi oil company, but I thought I'd let you know just in case you did. Lewis Hamilton, he got second in the US Grand Prix, and that means that he is now got his 6th world driving title. So he's one short of the all-time record holder, Michael Schumacher. His teammate Bottas won, so Mercedes is certainly having yet another very good year. Mr. Gorbachev has warned that tensions between Russia and the West is at risk for the entire planet. He's really mellowed out in his old age. He wants everybody to destroy their nuclear weapons. I think that's a bit of a vain hope at the moment. Delhi, they don't need nuclear weapons because they are choking everyone with a very dangerous smog. Schools are closed, construction halted. It's evidently absolutely grim in Delhi, but I don't think many of you will be wanting to put India on your bucket list for something to do over the summer holidays. What have we got? Google purchased Fitbit, $2.1 billion. Can you imagine paying that much for a company? Yeah. Especially with Fitbit, they've got quite a lot of Chinese competition. But anyway, $2.1 billion. Google are indeed people with money to burn. Thomas Cook, well, you know that they went under. Well, their brand, the Thomas Cook brand, which is a very long standing brand, it has been sold to Club Med, the Club Med owner actually, for £11 million. It's Chinese. I didn't really know that the Chinese owned Club Med, but they do. Fosun Tourism, it's called Fosun Tourism. And Sunderland's based Hayes Travel have bought all of the high street shops, 555 of them actually, for only £6 million. So that was a bit of a bargain deal. We were reading the latest Skipper magazine. There's a really good magazine in New Zealand. It's for mostly commercial marine things. Superb magazine. And it was actually about the new dolphin tourist boat down in Akaroa. They have the Hector dolphins. They're very rare. And it's a beautiful harbour in France. And very French looking, down in just outside of Christchurch on the coast, Akaroa. But the interesting thing about it is that they use dogs. They have, in fact, 4 dogs that they alternate. They're trained dogs, and the dogs, they call them the dolphin dogs, their hearing is so attuned that they can hear the very high-pitched, high-frequency clicking sonar sounds that the dolphins use to navigate safely through the water. And they can pick this up way ahead of the helmsman or the rest of the crew who are looking for dolphins. So they evidently whip up to where the side of the boat or where they think the dolphins are and bark furiously. And they're an absolute essential part of these dolphin tours. Well, a cruising item now. A New Zealand woman, she's actually from Warkworth. She was in the Aegean with her British boyfriend on a very small boat, Rival 34, I think it was. She dinghied ashore. Now, David will recognise this situation. 50 metres all. She dinghied ashore in her rubber dinghy and to walk up the hill. So she walks up the hill, calls the boyfriend on her cell phone, which was running out of steam, to say she was on her way back. So on her way back on this little rubber dinghy, she lost an oar, and it was windy. So she got blown away and spent 37 hours out at sea. He didn't actually raise the alarm until the following day. I'm not sure, he's a bit of a dumb boyfriend if you ask me. And the Coast Guard came out. But 37 hours she spent in the dinghy with about half a dozen boiled lollies. So I guess she was pretty happy to get back again. Okay, that's about it from me. I see it's just after. I won't bother with the rest of it. Time to wake up the old boy beside me here and talk about the weather. I'm looking at a magnificent clear skies where that high is for all you boats that are probably close to shore now and motoring, but the others are having that lovely sail. So thank you for bringing all this beautiful weather to us. Here's David.
All right, good morning. And, well, we have a classic upper level pattern this morning and into the future as well. Now, it's Saturday and Sunday, the 9th and the 10th. So looking ahead to this weekend, I'm seeing a very, very nice 500 ridge. The axis is about 165 west. Then we find a quite intense shortwave trough in the mid-Tasman, and the axis on that one is 165 east. Then a little bit further west from there, the next 500 ridge is found. Axis of that is about 142 east, and that is pretty much up and down the Oz coast, the Oz Bight. So that's about where that's located. But on its tail, the next shortwave trough, that axis is pretty close to cutting right through Perth. So that's your, I guess you would say, that your progression of upper level key items that are going to be controlling our weather. So anyway, correlating what I just gave you with the surface progs for, the 8th, 9th, right in there, we're going to see a 1025 high centered about 35 and 167 west. So it's moved off a ways. Then we've got a Tasman depression with its front that's going to be sliding over New Zealand. So this very nice high that Trish is talking about, you can wave goodbye to that. So this front's going to slide over New Zealand. Northerly quadrant winds will give you a fairly nice little run in, a nice gusto run into New Zealand at that time. And finally, there is a 1026 high that is in the Oz Bight, working its way east toward New Zealand. That's on that date as well. So we have another high that's going to be heading our way. Just a nice progression of it. Now these dates, more or less, end the current window. Once this next frontal band comes through, that's the end of the current one that we've been talking about. Now, one other thing, the models are not in agreement on a very tiny disturbance that grows according to EC. EC is picking up a tropical depression or tropical disturbance more or less between Fiji and Newcastle. And when is that? That's about Tuesday, Wednesday. Just now, the next couple of days. Anyhow, they're changing its location quite frequently if you go through the time periods. It's due. The reason for it is the two opposing highs clashing, and obviously they don't mix, as we've said. So EC is picking up a spin on it, and they're putting in some closed isobars. GFS does not. They don't put any closed isobars at all. But that doesn't mean that there couldn't be cyclonic rotation in that area. Now, this low, the EC low, let's call it that, pretty much gets absorbed by the trough, which is going to be there anyway, between the two highs. So whenever you see the two fairly decent sized highs coming together, again, you're going to see a trough. And whether or not we get spin out of it, who knows? Anything can really cause that. And EC happens to be picking it up to be a little bit more dramatic than GFS thinks it's going to be. Anyway, those of you that are traveling between Fiji and, say, Newcastle may want to think about that. We had one yacht that was thinking about it, but I think they stopped thinking once they saw that. We've had quite a few good windows to do that passage, and we'll have more, but this is probably not a good idea to get involved in this because that trough does stick up there quite a bit. So between Thursday and Friday of this week, later this week, all the way out to about the 19th of November, which I think is a Tuesday, we're going to see quite a few mellow anticyclones mixing it up with one or two depressions that are swinging by to the south. So that means arriving New Zealand on around the 19th or the 20th, or thereabouts, with fairly fresh northwest winds to get you moving nicely into the bay there. Doesn't look too bad at this time. Now, it's more or less, that is more or less the arrival part of what we might call the next window. So it's really up to you to do your homework and what you're willing to deal with between now and that 19th or 20th. There will be a few periods of headwinds, not much, not as bad as it had been. They're a little bit lighter. So it depends on what island group that you're at. Depends upon whether the winds are going to be any good for you or not. It's all fairly iffy, frankly, at this point, but you need to start somewhere. So I'm just looking at the 19th and the 20th as a potential arrival date. So work backwards from that, see how long, wherever you are, how long it might take you, and see if what's expected is acceptable. Okay, so the yachts now changing gears that are underway in near 30 south. You could expect pretty light air as you're pretty much within the middle of this oncoming high. And Patricia is looking right at that satellite picture, which we both are at the moment. And you can see that. You can see the strato-Q rotation around the perimeter of the high, and you can see almost dead air in the middle. So that's what the story is. So very light air Wednesday as well there. And then northerlies will kick in from about 25 south to New Zealand. Now, also on Wednesday, we have, up in the upper Tasman, we have another depression that's going to start to wind up. The winds from that are going to be northerly from Newcastle to New Zealand. Not good for a run from Newcastle to Oz due to the depression, but if you happen to be underway between Newcastle and New Zealand, you could certainly use that wind direction. Now, by very late Wednesday, very late tomorrow, towards midnight, the low could very well be south of New Caledonia, so it's drifting in an eastward direction, and it's extending a trough toward Grande Terre. the big island of Newcastle. Now, early on Saturday, a cloud band runs from just west of New Zealand all the way up to Vanuatu and may affect Fiji and Tonga as well. It might broaden out up there. Now, this front hardens up a bit, so that late Saturday's the 9th, it looks like it's going to about lie over New Zealand and extend north. Now, on Sunday, a new depression forms in the Tasman. So all kinds of activity, but beware of Monday. Monday, northerly quadrant winds looking like 20 knots and maybe even 50 knots up in gusts. So be ready for that. If you're just about ready to close New Zealand over the weekend, please try to do it before the Monday time frame. You will have the frontal band that will be over New Zealand just prior to that, but that frontal band does develop, it would appear, and there are some pretty gusty winds that are forecast by one or two of the models. Not such high gusts on GFS, but some of the other models are falling off a little bit higher gusts. So in any case, you don't want to be there. Now by Wednesday, the 13th, EC again is picking up. It's picking up the depression that I talked about earlier. So it is Wednesday the 13th. So anyway, keep that in mind. That is expected to be, according to them, near about 27, 28 south and 175 west. This is a different one. Sorry about that. This is Wednesday the 13th, 27, 28 south. It's going to move south-southeast, so it's going to get out of the picture. So it's out there at 175 west, they think, at that point. Now, one of this nasty depression that we've had a week and a half ago, that thing is still alive. And if you were to look at the models and even satellite imagery, you can see it more or less south of French Polynesia. And that thing, what it's doing is it's really skewing the isobars on the nice high that we've got now. Instead of having a nice French curve effect on the east side of this high, the isobars are tending to go north-south, and they're really messing up the rhumb line sailing between, say, Tonga or Minerva to New Zealand. So it's still annoyingly doing that, which is a shame. But it's moving. It's very slow and moving, but it is getting out of the way. Okay, looking at imagery now for the tropics. We've got numerous troughs. They're clearly evident up and about there. The key ones include the trough from the Solomons to Vanuatu. Boy, that's been around a long time. Another lies between Fiji and Vanuatu. That's the one that EC thinks may have a small depression form between those two flows. Anyway, that trough curves over to Rotuma. It goes all the way up then to Wallis, and then it hooks up with another trough that's just north of Wallis, and that one then runs east, actually just to the north of Samoa, and then keeps going. So those are the key troughs that are up in the tropics. There's others who bother to mention them because there's so many of them. And again, remember, the seasons are changing. So this is the time of the year we will expect to see more and more of these. And those we need to pay attention to, especially if you're looking at satellite imagery and you start to see these mesoscale convective systems, these big clumps, these reddish looking big clumps on your satellite imagery. Those are clusters of thunderstorms, and that's where tropical depressions are going to form. So always keep an eye out, and again, it's the time of the year when you should be looking at your satellite imagery. It's nice to look at the models, but there's nothing like real time what's happening. Quickly looking at the islands then, there's a fair amount of cloud evident over Tonga. Scattered and broken actually over Tongatapu, but much heavier over Vavau and the Ha'apais. So expect scattered showers today, probably tomorrow as well. Winds southeast in the 15-knot range today. Tomorrow, east to east-southeast, also in the 15-knot range. Now, the winds look to be fairly consistent pretty much through the weekend. Now, if you happen to be at Tongatapu, take a look at your barometer. Their reading this morning, early this morning, was 1012.7, and the relative humidity is up there at 86%. In fact, here at our location, it was up that high, and we actually had quite a bit of fog, a little bit offshore that we could see. Over to Fiji now, I see scattered cloud over southern Fiji, but heavier, much heavier bands to the north. Vanuatu, Taveuni, up in that area. The flow at cloud level is mostly west to east, so that's the direction the clouds are taking. So apart from the cloudy periods, we could expect scattered to isolated showers today and tomorrow. The winds today mostly southeast in the 15-knot range. Tomorrow a little bit of backing, I'd say east-southeast. Then Thursday, even more backing. It looks like we're looking at northeast winds, still in the 15-knot range. Vanuatu, that's fairly split on imagery, mostly fine from Erromango to Anishin, but heavier bands north of Port Vila all the way up to the banks. It looks like some showers up there as well. Nighttime temperatures, this is surprising, in the south, quite cold. Lenakai reported 13 degrees C, 13. That's about what our low was here in New Zealand. Winds east to east-southeast about 15 to 20, but possibly northeast up near the banks. Now tomorrow, that northeast wind pushes south almost as far as Port Vila. Then a bit of east winds near Erromango, and then some more northeasterlies for the Anishin area. And all of them are about 15 to 20. And lastly now, Newcastle, mostly fair, but there is scattered cloud about for the lagoon, east to east-southeast, 15 to 20. Tomorrow, quite light and variable, and really variable. We could see northwest to northeast winds to every which direction, frankly. Less than 10 knots probably. Later on Wednesday, west to west-southwest winds, more cloud, and there's a pretty good chance of showers later on Wednesday as well. So the actual conditions, the outer reef early this morning, east-northeast 9 to 13, Ile de Pan, east-southeast 3 to 5, and Noumea, east to east-northeast 8 to 13. So those are your actuals. And that's it for me. I'll pass it over to the chief.
All right, and a report has come in from Ponyo. Much more pleasant a trip that they've got now. Costa reports in, boy, there's a lot of people around that 27, 28 mark. They've seen quite a lot of life out there at sea, which is good to hear about. Babies